Now I wonder if anyone has ever heard of the Reverend Charles Lutwidge Dodgson. Now, not everyone has heard of him, but a lot of people have heard his words, and I'll read some of them now. Alice was tired of sitting by her sister on the grassy bank and having nothing to do. His sister was reading a book with no pictures or conversations in it. It looked very dull. It was a hot day, and Alice was feeling sleepy. She was wondering whether to get up and make a daisy chain, when suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close to her. Oh dear, I shall be late," the white rabbit said. It took a watch out of its waistcoat pocket, looked at it, and hurried on. Alice had never seen a rabbit with a waistcoat pocket, nor one with a watch to take out of it. She jumped to her feet and ran after it, just in time to see it pop down a large rabbit hole under the hedge. Down went Alice after it, never thinking how she was going to get out again. The rabbit hole went on like a tunnel for some way, and then it dipped suddenly. Alice found herself falling down a very deep well. She was falling slowly, so she had time to look around and see all sorts of interesting things on shelves and in cupboards on the way. I wonder how many thousand miles I've fallen, she thought. I must be near somewhere the centre of the earth. Perhaps I'll fall right through to the other side. But just then, thump, 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 down she came on a heap of leaves, without hurting herself at all. Ahead of her, at the end of a long passage, she saw the white rabbit hurrying along. "Oh, my ears and whiskers, how late it's getting," she heard it say as it turned the corner. Now, I'm sure you all know who the Reverend Charles Lutwidge Dodgson is now. Of course, he is the writer Lewis Carroll. And he used Lewis Carroll as his pen name. And he is, of course, the author of one of the most famous books in the English language. And here's a small ladybird one here, Alice in Wonderland. And it was later followed by Alice Through the Looking Glass. He was born in a place called Daresbury in Cheshire on the 27th of January 1832. Now he went to Oxford and he stayed there as a mathematics don, or a mathematics lecturer as we would call them today. And he belonged to Christ Church College, and this is the college that our minister went to in the 1980s. Now one day in July 1865, Lewis Carroll was on a boat trip on the river with his friend and the family of the Dean. And this included Alice Liddell, the daughter of the Dean. And Lewis Carroll told her a story he made up on the spot about Alice who fell down a rabbit hole and had all sorts of adventures. And later he wrote the story down, and it was published in 1865. And this is a picture of Walrus that was drawn by Sir John Tenniel. And as you can see, it's quite a fantastic drawing. There is Alice, some of the animals that she met, and of course, the famous cards. Now, many children and adults have enjoyed his stories. They've been made into plays and into films, and many of his characters have become extremely famous, like the Queen of Hearts, the Mad Hatter, the Cheshire Cat, Jabberwock, Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Many people dress up in these costumes for Halloween. Now, Lewis Carroll also wrote about the dodo and Humpty Dumpty. He also wrote about the mock turtle and the caterpillar. And here is probably a picture of his most famous character of all. And as we can see, it's the White Rabbit. There's his watch, and there's a smart waistcoat with a rather smart jacket as well. And of course, the White Rabbit always thought he was going to be late. And he was always looking at his watch. But of course, he never was late. And he never really had to worry. But throughout the books, he's always late. Now, Lewis Carroll loved the world of imagination. He liked to play, and he liked fantasy. And it didn't matter what age he was. That was something he really enjoyed. And I think we can all see that and read it in his books. He also liked to write verses and poems. And these were usually nonsense. And although many of them sounded serious, they were really just pieces of fun. One of the poems he wrote was called The Walrus and the Carpenter. And I'd like to read a few verses of it. Now, The Walrus and the Carpenter has 18 verses, but I'm just going to read the first 5. The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd, because it was the middle of the night. The moon was shining sulkily, because she thought the sun had got no business to be there after the day was done. "It's very rude of him," she said, "to come and spoil the fun." The sea was wet could be. The sands were dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because no clouds were in the sky. No birds were flying overhead. There were no birds to fly. The Walrus and the Carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. "If this were only cleared away," they said, "it would be grand." If 7 maids with 7 mops swept it for half a year, do you suppose, the Walrus said, that they could get it clear? "I doubt it," said the Carpenter, and shed a bitter tear. Now, at first, Lewis Carroll was a mathematician. But no one would read his maths books today. And of course, he was a minister of the Church of England. But no one remembers him for that either. But what he is remembered for is his books and his writings, which have brought so much joy to so many people. And the whole array of marvellous characters he invented, like Alice herself, the famous Disney version of Alice in Wonderland. When we think of all this, we should be thankful for the pleasure that we have from reading and for all the good books that we can enjoy. And of course, we should remember Lewis Carroll, who gave us one of the most loved and famous books of all.